Hey everyone, I just wanted to make a short video to introduce you all to Unit 2. I appreciate you guys being patient with me. It's taken me a while to get this video up and ready for you, but part of that is because Unit 2 is going to be kind of weird. I mean, we're missing a week on spring break, and this unit we're going to be focusing a lot on research. We're going to be moving from primary research that you did in Project 1 through observation and interview towards more of a focus on secondary research, which you get from any non-direct sources. So for example, websites, documentaries, magazine or newspaper articles, and scholarly research articles. So while you might decide you want to use mostly primary research techniques for your final research project, that's fine. But part of the course objectives for this class are that we do cover a wider range of research. So I ended up making a few later changes to our work this unit in order to really make the focus about research. So I want to just go in to the course page. Here you'll see Unit 2 available here. And what you've got so far is a short note. There will be the video I'm making now posted very shortly, and you've got the week 8 work for Tuesday and Friday, and a little spring break reminder for week 9. And the other weeks I'll probably get those posted pretty soon. So first, I want to let you know about a couple of new things this unit. First, the project that we'll be doing is probably going to be different than anything you've done before, so I'm going to start by reviewing that. Then I'll go over briefly the daily schedule with you. Then I'll show you the research process journal, which you'll be making at least 3 entries in during this unit. And finally, I'll share some extra credit options with you. Yes, I've created 4 for this unit. And part of the reason behind that is several of you guys said you missed week 6 discussion with the course embedded tutor. And I take partial responsibility for that. I went back and looked and I realized that I wasn't specific about your participation in the weekly announcement, even though it was there in the discussion board itself. I asked you to check in. But I didn't tell you specifically what you needed to do. You had to go into the discussion board to find that. So in order to make up some of those lost points, and just in order to make up lost points anyway from anything, you will have several options this semester or this unit to make up some points. Okay, so let's go to the Project 2 schedule. So I've just gone ahead and loaded this up here to save some time. Oops, those are the extra credit options. We're going to start with the Project 2 description. Okay, so what you'll see is that this project is an annotated bibliography with an iSearch. So iSearch is probably a term you haven't heard before. Basically, it's a kind of writing project or paper in first year composition that asks students to really focus on writing about their research process. So it asks you to take notes as you research and to think carefully about how you're conducting research. And then the idea is that if you can learn more about what works and what doesn't for you as a researcher, then you'll develop into a stronger researcher. It's kind of a funky genre. There aren't a lot of specific rules, and it does call for a more casual, informal tone. So you can use I. You can say things like, first I went to the U of H library and I did a keyword search for whatever your subculture might be, and several books popped up, and then I went to go find them, but I realized they were all out of date. So you just kind of narrate your research process like that. And we'll be looking at some examples so you have an idea of what those look like. But also, just to let you know now, while I'm describing this assignment, that doesn't mean that you should spend a lot of time talking about things that maybe don't matter. So or do matter, but not for this assignment. So for example, you might spend a little bit of time explaining why you chose the subculture that you did, but not a lot. You focused on that last unit. Now it's not as important for us to talk through that process anymore. Now you want to talk specifically through your process of research. And, the whole conversation about how you decided to do this subculture, what subcultures you considered beforehand, that's not really appropriate for this assignment. Okay, so I'm going to skip the overview here, which you can read on your own. I do want to go over the goals. The goals are to teach you how to find and evaluate credible sources that help you investigate specific research questions. So again, we're going to be doing more starting with the questions for this assignment that you ended Project 1 with, and then writing more research questions again throughout the process of this paper. Another goal is to introduce you to secondary research techniques, like I mentioned. Another is to encourage you to develop reflective and efficient research practices. Also to help you look at sources critically and find ways to use them for your own purposes. One thing that's really might be frustrating for some of you is that you might have to go through several sources that you read that you may not actually use. So, sorry, I'm making a note to myself about something else to share with you as a resource that's focused on talking about how to critically read sources. So you don't always have to read the entire source that you find. That's what I used to do when I first started researching. I didn't really know how to be a good critical reader and find out quickly whether or not the source is going to be useful. So we'll be talking about that a little bit later as well. Okay. So one of the things you'll find is that this assignment will ask you to talk about or annotate 8 sources, and then when you move to project 3, you may not decide to use all of those sources. So the purpose here is to conduct the research and to find credible sources, but you're not committed to using every source you find in your final project. And then I guess this is like the 5th goal, is to challenge you to begin thinking about how different texts are in conversation with one another. So that's one of the final parts of the assignment. We'll ask you to start analyzing the sources in relation to one another. Okay, now the format of this assignment, like I said, is a little bit different. So not only is the idea of the iSearch different, but I'm going to ask you to use a very specific format that in my major of writing and composition studies we call the IMRAD format, and it has section headings that are introduction, methods, results, and discussion. So this might look a little bit familiar to some of you guys who are in the social sciences or general sciences or math. This is the format that they use in a lot of disciplines outside of humanities. And the reason why I'm having you guys write in this is so that you don't have to think about global organization in this paper. The format is there for you already. Instead, you will be focusing on describing the research process, doing the research, and annotating your sources. So all of you should have these headings in your paper. You will see that the grading criteria matches up with these. And again, like I said, you'll be seeing some examples of these, so to give you an idea of what they actually look like. So you'll see here I'm asking you to write a short introduction, and then a slightly longer method section where I'll ask you to develop and write out the criteria that you're using for evaluating your sources. I'll ask you to talk about what worked and what didn't work so well in your research process, and to talk about different search engines and things like that that you used. And like I said, when we get to the research process journal, that's really going to help you write this methods section here. Then the results and annotation section, here you will, through your research, you will pick at least 8 sources and annotate them. If you want, you can include the interview or 2 interviews in the observation you've already conducted here for Project 1 as one of your annotated sources. But in addition to that, you'll be required to include sources that meet these criteria that I'll let you read later. And I will be posting those directions for how to write each annotation soon. And again, those are very specific directions that I'll ask you to follow. I might even go ahead and attach those directions here to the assignment page so that you can see those. But basically, they ask you to write about 2 paragraphs for each source. First, you summarize the source, then you evaluate it using the criteria, and then you end with a final sentence or 2 about how you might use the source. So whether it does a good job of showing a more national perspective of your subculture, or if it presents a really offensive image of your subculture in the media and you want to argue against it. So that's what the annotations will be. And then finally, I end with a discussion section where you talk about the trends you noticed in your sources. How are they in conversation with one another? And then I'll ask you again to talk about what other research you need to do. So this is a little bit of a longer essay. It's about 6 to 8 pages, or 2,250 to 3,000 words. The idea is that you will, again, be able to use and build on this material for the final project. And I want to say a little bit about the final project now. By final project, I mean Project 3. So you will be asked to finally, after doing all this inquiry, make an argument about your subculture. Now, at least in rough draft form, that argument will be a text-based written argument. So you will be doing some writing, but you will also have the option of creating a multimodal text that is either a